Very good afternoon, everyone. I hope you guys are doing well. Uh, I don't see too much activity on the chat box, but will be good if anybody who's here can also say hi. Would be nice to see all of you active on the chat box as well. In any case, Shambhavi, hi, Shambhavi is here. Very good afternoon, Shambhavi. How are you doing? Been a long time since I think I've been taking a session, right? Okay, so subscriber mode only. Messages that appear are only for people who have subscribed to the channel. I see. So for those of you who have not subscribed yet, you will not be able to actively participate on the chat box. Mimansa, very good to see you as well. I'm sure all of you have definitely heard and definitely read about the recent incidents at Lakhimpur Kheri, right? Very, very recently, of all the coincidences, I was literally there's this dam, and I was very about 15 kilometers from the entire Flashpoint area. I was visiting Shravasti for some work, and Yogi Adityanath, the current Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh, he was scheduled to visit Bahraich and Shravasti in the coming morning. Like next morning, he was having a meeting, sabha, rally, combination of all kinds of those words. And at about 10 p.m. in the night, we got to know कि कल योगी जी नहीं आ रहे हैं because whatever something major has happened in Lakhimpur. And of course, by next morning, it was all over the newspapers, and a lot of people in Lucknow were under house arrest. And I thought, I don't know how I'm going to manage to reach Lucknow. There was curfew in Lucknow. There's till the 7th, I think. There was also Section 144 of the CRPC was actually imposed, and so on. So, what is the whole protest about, right? What is the whole protest about? What are the farm laws? What have people been protesting about, right? That's what we are going to not only revise, but I'm going to take you through the important aspects of the protests, not just at Lakhimpur, but I'm sure all of you have read about the long-standing protest, rather, that has been happening in the Singhu border of the NCT of Delhi, right? Delhi border पे तो चल ही रहा है, अब तो काफी दिन हो गए वहां पे चलते हुए. So we are going to be looking at overall what are the three important farm bills, what are the key terms, what are the important issues, right? And what is the current status, right? Government kya keh raha hai, Supreme Court ultimately kya keh rahi hai. Those are the things that we are going to be looking at. But before we move on, I just want to take a moment to introduce myself. I know some of you have definitely met me, but for the convenience of those people जो मुझसे बिल्कुल मुलाकात कभी नहीं हुई है, right? My name is Debajyoti Das. I have, of course, graduated from Hidayatullah National Law University. I've been a Microsoft intellectual property research scholar, and after graduation, I was working with this law firm called Amarchand Mangal Das, one of the topmost law firms in India, and my specialization was capital markets. So, abhi to, of course, स्टॉक मार्केट्स एंड सिक्योरिटीज मार्केट में काफ़ी रोज आप सुन रहे होंगे कि the Nifty has reached an all-time high, the Bank Nifty has reached an all-time high, the Sensex 30 has reached an all-time high, and how much money Rakesh Jhunjhunwala is making. And honestly, it sounds insane, the amount of money, but it's not very surprising given how bullish the current market really is. So, but anyway, that's just a quick introduction for myself. I did get an All India rank 20, which I think is probably the most interesting thing for you. I do suggest all of you to please join me on my Telegram group, right? Where it's not been exceptionally active over the last 4-5 days while we were waiting for the sessions and all of those things to begin. But I am going to put it up on the chat box as well, so that you guys can directly join from the chat box through the link that has been posted, right? People do keep asking questions every once in a while. There's an actual screenshot from the Telegram group itself. So we were, I think, discussing about money bills and something in this particular screenshot that I have shared with you. Right. Of course, admissions for the various subscriptions for the various courses are open. Right now, we do have the special code that has been allotted to me. So if you like my style of teaching, I would strongly request and strongly encourage all of you to use this code DEV10 for an additional 10% discount. And the various courses will include live classes. Obviously, there are so many quizzes. There are, for the first time, we do have the raise a hand option, which means, so of course, it's not available on YouTube, but you guys can raise your hand and you can speak during the course of our sessions as well. तो ये सब भी बिल्कुल चलता रहता है, right? For those of you who have in online classes, कई बार ये वाला प्रॉब्लम फेस करते हैं लोग कि अरे सिर्फ चैट में क्वेश्चन लिखना बहुत मुश्किल हो रहा है, ये हो रहा है, वो हो रहा है. But it's okay. On the Unacademy platform, we have now introduced this particular feature as well. You can join us on the Rankers batch, which is for the batch of 2023. You can also join us for the various live quiz features, right? Including quizzes that you guys can create yourself, right? जो of course Telegram group पे भी होता रहता है. Every day I see somebody or the other has asked a question and there is a doubt or an explanation that gets answered every once in a while, and students are very helpful on the group as well. सब एक दूसरे को भी answer बिल्कुल करते रहते हैं, right? So please do join us. Please do join us. Now let's come to our discussion for today, specific discussion for today, which is the Lakhimpur Khedi incident, which is in relation to the farmer protests, right? They're continuing, of course, sabko pata hai. It has, as of the last week or so, it has definitely become a major issue in the upcoming elections in Uttar Pradesh as well. Elections just a few months away in UP, right? UP में अब ज़्यादा दिन नहीं बचे हैं चुनाव में, and in light of the elections, this incident is probably going to be part of the national news for some time to come. Now, when you're reading newspapers, and this is something that I really want to discuss with all of you, something that I want to highlight for all of you, that if you guys are reading the newspapers, if you guys are looking at what are the important things and what are the things that I need to remember, right, from the newspapers, तो क्या एक आप सबने पढ़ा होगा कि there is a particular minister, एक मिश्रा जी हैं, whose son is one of the accused. अजय मिश्रा कोई है, आशीष मिश्रा कोई है, so who's the father, who's the son, who's the minister, which ministry, right? He's actually MOS Home, which is Minister of State for Home Affairs. So the Home Minister of India, of course, is Amit Shah. वो तो आप सबको पता ही है that the Home Minister of India is of course Amit Shah. But there is a junior home minister, right? Junior home minister तो ऐसे नहीं बोला जाता है. Technically it is MOS, Minister of State for Home Affairs, and that is, so is that particular minister's name important or not? I would think कि हाँ भाई कम से कम उनका नाम, right? In fact, I would think all the important ministries in India, like say for example, so minister की जहाँ बात हो रही है, you could say Home Ministry is of course a very important ministry. Then there is Defense Ministry, which is very important. Then of course we have Prime Minister, तो by default ही है ही है. There is Minister for Foreign Minister जिसको बोलते हैं, that is the Minister for External Affairs, right? The Minister for External Affairs. Do you guys know all of these ministers? Home Minister तो मैंने बता दिया. Okay, Home Minister तो मैंने बता दिया. Who is the External Affairs Minister of India? Anyone knows? Please reply on the chat box if you guys know who is the Home Minister of India, who is the Defense Minister, who is the External Affairs Minister. Amit Shah तो मैंने बता दिया है. Now I'm not going to tell you the other answers. Those of you who don't know, please find out. या कम से कम chat box में बताओगे, then I will be happy to respond to them. Now other headlines, for example, would include कि how many people have actually died, right? कि गाड़ी चढ़ गई तो कितने लोग मर गए, right? And in retaliation, the farmers also retaliated very aggressively. They dragged out a few people from the from the vehicles, and then they killed a few of the people who were associated with the BJP at that time, who were present physically at the location. So is that cumulative number, how many farmers, how many BJP workers, etc., is that something which is going to be relevant? That I think is the answer should be no, right? यहाँ पर answer has to be no. This is not something that I think CLAT exam में ये पूछा जाएगा, ऐसा मुझे नहीं लगता है. I don't think they're going to ask you this kind of questions. So what is important basically is you need to distinguish in a particular news what is actually important for current affairs and what is purely a political kind of news. Now, any particular news which is purely political, समाजवादी पार्टी के राम गोपाल वर्मा ने क्या बोला, प्रोफेसर राम गोपाल जी ने क्या बोला, अखिलेश यादव जी ने क्या बोला, राहुल गांधी ने क्या बोला, प्रियंका गांधी के अगेंस्ट एफआईआर हुआ या नहीं हुआ, what did the agriculture minister say, what did Modi say, what did the BJP spokesperson say. These are completely political news, right? What is important from a current affairs, what is important from a legal perspective for the CLAT examination, that has to be based on the various legal developments, right? Actually bill में क्या लिखा है, actually जो farmers law है उस law में क्या लिखा है, what are the changes that we expect from that particular law, what are the changes that the farmers are demanding in that particular law, those qualify as current affairs, right? तो वो करंट अफेयर्स में आता है. बाकी इधर उधर की जो बातें हैं वो प्योरली पॉलिटिकल है. वी नीड टू डू ओनली द करंट अफेयर्स काइंड ऑफ न्यूज. वी डोंट नीड टू डू व्हाट इज प्योरली पॉलिटिकल न्यूज. सो कितने लोग एग्जैक्टली मरे इज ultimately it becomes and boils down to a statistical issue, and what did who say, and this becomes political news. What needs to be done is basics of current affairs only, right? So what are the farm laws? So there are three. I am sure all of you are aware, or कम से कम आपने पढ़ा भी होगा, देखा होगा, सुना होगा कि ultimately there are three farm laws that have been passed. But this is a very popular misconception. मैं सबसे पहले at the very beginning I want to inform all of you that this is a very, very common mistake that a lot of people commit, that there are three farm laws. Three farm laws nahi hai, right? There are not three farm laws. What is true is there are two new farm laws and one is an amendment, right? One is an amendment to a pre-existing law. एक एसेंशियल कमोडिटीज एक्ट जो है वो पहले से था. एसेंशियल कमोडिटीज एक्ट इज नॉट अ न्यू लॉ. दिस थर्ड वन दैट यू गाइज आर लुकिंग एट, दिस इज नॉट अ न्यू लॉ. दिस इज समथिंग व्हिच एग्जिस्टेड इवन बिफोर, right? This is something which existed. Now this particular law has only been amended. इसमें कुछ changes, right? कुछ changes, amendment has definitely happened. But the other two, the first and the second, are definitely new laws that have come into effect. So what are these new laws? The Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce Promotion and Facilitation Act of 2020. So it's the Trade and Commerce Act. So I'm, for the future, I'm just going to refer to it as the TC Act, the Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce Promotion and Facilitation Act. Then we have the Farmers Empowerment and Protection Agreement on Price Assurance and Farm Services. So isme again the main factor, the main thing that we have to always remember in the second law is basically about price assurance. So that's why we are going to call it the Price Assurance Act. And of course the Essential Commodities Act, अब से मेरे से बहुत पहले से भी लोग उसको EC Act ही कहते हैं. It is already popularly known as basically the the EC Act. Now, before I come to some of the specific issues about, you know, what are the key changes or the important changes or the important terms in these new laws, I also want to take a moment to explain how a bill becomes a law, right? How a bill becomes a law. क्योंकि जब प्रोटेस्ट पहले शुरू हुए थे, सब उसको फार्म बिल वगैरह कह रहे थे, right? So it's not the farmers bill anymore, it is the farmers acts. पहले bill था, अब act बन चुका है. So how does a bill become an act? If it is a money bill, then first of all the procedure is different. So right, we have two kinds of bills. One is of course one is the money bill, right? Money bill, and we have the ordinary bill. Okay, money bill and ordinary bill. So you will usually hear about two kinds of bills in the first place. So money bill, ordinary bill में तो first of all, who decides whether a particular bill is a money bill or an ordinary bill? So you have to remember, it is basically the Speaker of Lok Sabha. It is basically the Speaker of Lok Sabha who ultimately decides whether a bill is a money bill or an ordinary bill. Now, if the Speaker decides, Lok Sabha ka Speaker, right? Lok Sabha ka Speaker. If the Speaker of Lok Sabha decides that something is a money bill, then that means that bill cannot be introduced in the Rajya Sabha. Then that is a bill which will be introduced only in the Lok Sabha, right? So Lok Sabha में introduce होगा. Lok Sabha में अगर pass हो गया, if it is passed by majority in the Lok Sabha, then it goes to the Rajya Sabha. But Rajya Sabha में pass होना compulsory नहीं है. Please remember, this is very, very important distinction. This is the most important difference between a money bill and an ordinary bill, right? So the key difference between money bill and ordinary bill is that the money bill does not need to be passed by the Rajya Sabha. Second step may also, because after both houses ka issue khatam ho gaya, then what happens? It goes to the president, right? So Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, then President of India. So again, if it is a money bill, if something is a money bill, it does not have to be passed by the president also. President का भी sign करने की कोई जिम्मेदारी नहीं है. What the president has to do, what the president can do is, even if the president is refusing to sign it or whatever, the bill automatically becomes law. So that's for money bill. Now these farm bills, were introduced in the Lok Sabha, right? अब farm bill Lok Sabha में पहले pass हुआ on September 17th, right? It was passed on the 17th of September. Then it was passed by the Rajya Sabha on the 20th of September, and this is all 2020. Okay, this is all, ये पिछले साल का ही मामला, सब कुछ पिछले साल का है. This is not this year, this is all 2020 की बात हो रही है, right? अब तक तो काफी महीने हो चुके हैं. It's not that it was just passed like last week or something, right? So in any case, once it was passed last year, but the protests and the issue is still going on. So what with the Lakhimpur Khedi incident, that's why we're taking a quick revision of the farm bills, right? So Lok Sabha passed them, Rajya Sabha passed them, then finally President also gave his assent on 27th of September, right? On 27th of September, the President of India also gave his assent. So once all of these things happened, the bill has now become a law. It is no longer a bill. Now it will be treated as law. This is something which is enforceable in a court of law as well, right? If you go to the High Court or you go to the Supreme Court or District Court for that matter, you know, any of the lower courts, ये सब जगह पे अगर bill होता, if it was only a bill which has not gone through these legislative steps, then that is still not going to be enforceable in the court. But these things which have already gone through these steps, this has become a law, and this is something which is binding and can have effect in the courtrooms like the High Court as well as the Supreme Court of India, right? Okay, what are some of the important terms? I am sure, I am convinced that a lot of you, if you've been reading the newspapers, if you've been looking at news channels and debates, and if you heard, I don't know, Rakesh Tikayat speak, you have definitely heard of the fact that the farmers, or whatever, certain portion of the people who are farmers are definitely saying क्या है कि minimum support price, the MSP has been removed. इसके through MSP हट जाएगा, MSP को हटा रहे हैं, इसीलिए ये सब गलत हो रहा है. So now what is minimum support price becomes a very, very important thing for us to understand, so that we don't have any confusion and we don't commit the mistake of living in absolute ignorance, right? We should know what is MSP. एक साइड कह रहा है कि आप हटा रहे हैं, एक साइड कह रहा है, government is saying no, we are not removing minimum support price. There is no question of removing minimum support price in the first place. So what is minimum support price? First of all, MSP has consistently, for many decades now, right, for many decades, MSP has consistently been an integral part of India's agricultural policy, right? When you look at the first 5-year plan, the first 5-year plan, 5-year plans India की economic policy का important part है, right? The first 5-year plan itself, the first focus was on agriculture, right? We've had the pink revolution, we've had the green revolution, which has been extremely famous. There is so many projects on irrigation, so many projects about, you know, milk production, etc. कई सारी चीजें हम करते रहते हैं, because largely India is still a huge percentage of India's demography, of a huge percentage of India's population largely relies on agrarian income, right? 70% of India, चलो 70 नहीं, थोड़ा कम हुआ होगा, आज भी 65% of India at least still relies on agriculture as a source of income. So minimum support price is something which is a very, very important part of the entire agrarian policy of India. What is minimum support price? It is the minimum guaranteed price, right? It is the minimum guaranteed price at which the government will purchase certain agricultural products, even if, and this is the part which is extremely important, even if the market price of such goods falls below the minimum support price, price उसका कम भी हो जाएगा, right? Even if the market price drops, half भी हो गया, 1/3 भी हो गया, 1/10 भी हो गया, it does not matter. The guaranteed minimum price of purchase is something which is done by the government itself. So let's say if the government has fixed, the MSP for rice, okay, at whatever, let's say 45 rupees per quintal, okay. Now even if जो particular rice की बात हो रही है, even if the market price, MRP ho, MSP ho, whatever you want to call it, right, the maximum retail price, the maximum sale price, if this price goes to 20 rupees also, it doesn't matter, government will still pay 45, okay. The government will still pay the farmer that amount of 45 rupees for every quintal. This is just an indicative price, guys, just want to be clear. ये सिर्फ एक इंडिकेटिव प्राइस है, ऑब्वियसली 45 नहीं होता है, डिपेंड्स ऑन द राइस, बहुत ज़्यादा भी होता है, बहुत कभी डिपेंड्स ऑन व्हाट इज द क्वालिटी ऑफ द राइस, डिपेंड्स ऑन व्हाट इज द जॉनर ऑफ द राइस, लोकेशन, ये वो बहुत सारे फैक्टर्स देखे जाते हैं, उसके बाद जो भी एमएसपी फिक्स किया जाता है, राइट. सो फॉर एग्जांपल पोटैटोज का भी यूपी में फॉर एक एमएसपी फिक्स्ड है, But UP potato farmers, if you speak with them, they usually don't sell it at their at the MSP price that is fixed by the government, क्योंकि उनका market price ज़्यादा मिल रहा है, right? So if potato का MSP is fixed at 45, but अगर market price 100 rupees है, market price 60 rupees है, if the market price is basically much higher than the MSP, then the farmer doesn't have to sell it at MSP. ऐसा नहीं कि फार्मर को जाके सरकार को ही देना पड़ेगा, वो भी MSP पे ही देना पड़ेगा, ऐसा ये सब कुछ नहीं है. हाँ, अगर आपको मार्केट में उससे कम प्राइस मिल रहा है, right? If you are not able to get the guaranteed price in the general marketplace, right, in the farmers marketplace, then the farmer has the option, right? Then the farmer has the option that okay, I don't have to sell it at the market, मुझे तो MSP पे ही बेचना है, मुझे सरकार को ही बेचना है, and so on. The huge controversy, right, the huge controversy जो चल रहा है वो यही है कि MSP हटा रहे हैं according to some people. Of course, the Agriculture Minister of India, again, who is the Agriculture Minister of India? Do you guys know who is the Agriculture Minister of India? Agriculture Minister of India, anybody on the chat box? Not too much activity that I can see on the chat box. Agriculture Minister, पता करना है. You guys need to find out who is the Agro Minister of India. But Agriculture Minister हो, Prime Minister हो, सबने, right, तोमर जी करके हैं, उन्होंने भी बताया, Prime Minister ने बताया कि भाई भारत में MSP नहीं हट रहा है. Government has guaranteed that we will not remove the minimum support price system. We will not remove the MSP for various products, for a variety of products that are already available. Now, just to be clear, the MSP system was ultimately started in the 60s. Like I said, first 5-year plan में आपका agriculture पे focus वगैरह था, but MSP system came after the first 5-year plan, and it was started in the 60s. The regulation of MSP and calculation was to be done by the Agricultural Price Commission, which was set up in the year 1965 on the recommendation of the L.K. Jha Committee. L.K. Jha Committee. तो ये नाम आपको याद रखना बहुत important है. You have to remember this particular name, right? Jesta, very good, Jesta. Yes, Naren Singh Tomar is the Agriculture Minister of India. You guys should also remember the L.K. Jha Committee, जिसके under Agricultural Price Commission was initially set up in 1965, जो L.K. Jha Committee के recommendation के basis पे हुआ था. And this commission will basically decide how to do the calculation of MSP, right? And this is the commission which was renamed, right? This was ultimately renamed as the Commission for Agriculture Cost and Price, or the CACP, Commission for Agriculture Cost and Price, that is the CACP, and this renaming was done in 1985. So even today, if we look at what is the circumstances, what are the circumstances, even today the body, the regulatory commission which calculates the MSP, right, it of course it takes recommendations from various places and various sources and speaks to farmers and speaks to various government agencies and so on and so forth. वो तो होता ही है, but the commission which decides, right, is the Commission for Agriculture Cost and Price, जो नाम बेसिकली सिर्फ चेंज किया गया. पहले वो क्या था, एग्रीकल्चरल प्राइस कमीशन था, एंड एग्रीकल्चरल प्राइस कमीशन वाज सेट अप ऑन द रिकमेंडेशन ऑफ द एलके झा कमिटी. राइट गाइज, सो सारे वर्ड्स याद हो गए, सारे ये सब जो इंपॉर्टेंट चीजें हैं फ्रॉम अ हिस्ट्री, दैट मीन्स जीके सेक्शन में भी ये आपको पूछ सकते हैं, राइट? अभी लखीमपुर खीरी में ये सब इंसिडेंट हुआ है, तो दिस, इवन इफ इट इज नॉट लाइक अ लीगल रीजनिंग क्वेश्चन, this is something that they can very easily ask you even in the GK section, right? And of course this is something that they can ask you in the of course in the legal section as well. So कहीं पर भी पूछा जाए हमें आंसर पता होना चाहिए, right? Just a gentle reminder, अभी भी हम लोग क्या key differences हैं, that is something we are going to be looking at. But before I come to the key differences between the older law and what are the changes that have been brought in by the new law, I just want to give all of you a gentle reminder. For those of you who are looking to take the subscriptions, please do use my code DEV10 if you like my style of teaching. Okay, चलो आगे बढ़ा जाए. Without wasting too much time, let's move on. The first important changes are under the first act that I have talked to you guys about, right? तो क्या वो पहला act क्या था? That was the Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce Promotion and Facilitation Act, जिसको हम कह रहे थे ट्रेड एंड कॉमर्स की वजह से टीसी एक्ट, राइट? आई वाज कॉलिंग इट द टीसी एक्ट. वो हर बार पूरा इतना बड़ा नाम लिखने में थोड़ा सा ज्यादा हो जाता, राइट? नाउ फार्मर्स आर नाउ अलाउड टू सेल देयर प्रोड्यूस आउटसाइड द डेजिग्नेटेड एपीएमसी मंडीज. सो अगेन हम कुछ नए वर्ड्स यहां पर सुन रहे हैं. देयर आर अ कपल ऑफ न्यू वर्ड्स. फर्स्ट इज व्हाट इज एपीएमसी, right? APMC is Agricultural Produce Market Committee. Okay, so जो मंडीज होते हैं, आपने भी सुना होगा, आपके शहर में भी आई एम श्योर देयर इज अ मंडी सिस्टम, राइट? आई एम श्योर देयर इज अ मंडी सिस्टम. तो वो मंडी में क्या होता है कि whatever the APMC एरिया में, that is where the government pays the MSP. That is where the government pays the MSP. That is where the government does the procurement of agricultural produce, right? So if you are a farmer and you have produced X amount of X kilograms or quintals or tons of potatoes or rice or pulses or whatever it is, and you don't want to sell it in the marketplace, you want to sell it to the government, right? तो आप एपीएमसी में जाएंगे तो गवर्नमेंट के प्रोक्योरमेंट सेंटर्स वगैरह होते हैं, and that's where you can sell it. Now the rule was, and this is where it gets what is the word I'm looking for, gets interesting, but also gets a little tricky to understand the background of all of these things. So earlier, if you were a farmer, आपका जो designated मंडी है, आपका जो भी designated APMC है, you were not allowed to sell your produce outside your own designated APMC, right? You were not allowed to sell it outside your own designated APMC. So which means if you are a farmer from say UP and you want to sell the product in I don't know, Gujarat or Kerala or something like that, then you will not be allowed to do that. Okay. Under the new Trade and Commerce Act, the Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce Promotion and Facilitation Act, जो पहला act था, right? Under this new act, farmers are of course now allowed to sell their produce outside their designated APMCs and their designated mandis. So you can sell it outside. This is first very, very important change. Through the e-NAM and other electronic means, right? So e-NAM, National Agricultural Market, the online agricultural market, जैसे Sensex 30 है, right? जैसे Nifty 50 है या Nifty 100 भी है वैसे तो, बट निफ्टी इंडेक्स है, सेंसेक्स का इंडेक्स है, जो आपका स्टॉक मार्केट का इंडेक्स है. अभी जस्ट मार्केट क्लोज हो गए होंगे ना, 330 क्रॉस हो गया, या सो नाउ टुडे के लिए तो द स्टॉक मार्केट्स आर क्लोज्ड, बट ऑन द स्टॉक मार्केट you are allowed to trade in equity stocks, in the derivatives, in the futures, in the options of certain stocks. IPOs होता है, ये होता है, वो होता है. So there are a variety of these things that happen through the stock market. Now, similarly, you can also through online means, you can sell your produce sitting here in Kerala as well. So somebody in Kerala wants to buy UP ka rice. There is something called, I'll give you some examples. No, there's something called black rice. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it. But there's something called black rice, which is largely produced in eastern Uttar Pradesh, particularly like in Chandauli district and so on of Uttar Pradesh. This very famous kind of rice called black rice. So now black rice is largely available, of course, production ही सिर्फ यहीं पर होता है. Most of that production gets exported, right? Most of that production, of course, gets exported out of India, and so on and so forth. But if you want to purchase that black rice, and some farmer of black rice can directly now sell it through ऑनलाइन मीन्स ऑल्सो, सिर्फ ऐसा नहीं है कि आपको अमेजन में ले जाके ब्रांडिंग करके और ये सब करके करना पड़ेगा. आप भारत सरकार के वेबसाइट के थ्रू भी, थ्रू द ई-नाम मैकेनिज्म, you can do it through the government of India as well, right? Now also there is prohibition of state governments from levying any charges or commissions for sale outside the APMC and mandi system. So ऐसा नहीं है, पहले तो परमिशन ही नहीं था, right? बहुत सारे चार्जेस और ये सब भी होता था, बट अब ये सब कमीशंस नहीं हो सकते हैं for sale outside APMC. So if somebody wants to sell it outside their own designated, जो यहाँ पर बात हो रही थी, यहाँ पर बात हुई ना, that farmers can now sell it outside. So if they decide to sell it outside, there should not be any additional burden. There should not be any additional burden that these farmers are going to face. Right now, of course, there are certain complications, right? Which is what the people who are protesting, right? Whether it is Rakesh Tikait and so many others, वो ये कह रहे हैं कि भाई अच्छा वो अब इसमें ये सब हुआ क्योंकि because private contractors, right? You can do corporate purchase now, so corporates will be able to exploit the farmers. This is also a major aspect of the whole protest and the whole discussion. अब ये जो corporates को बेचने वाली बात है, that you can directly sell it to companies and companies will probably be able to exploit the farmers, that all comes from the second legislation. वो सब हमारा दूसरे लॉ से आ रहा है. दूसरा लॉ कौन सा था? The Price Assurance and Farm Services, the Farmers Empowerment and Protection Agreement on Price Assurance. So जो Price Assurance वाला act था, the second act, under this also we have some important changes, and I think this is one of the focal legislations, one of the important legislations जिसकी वजह से बहुत सारे कंट्रोवर्सीज अब हो रहे हैं. आप अपने मंडी के बाहर बेच सकते हैं, ये सब तो ठीक है, लेकिन अब एमएसपी की गारंटी इसीलिए भरोसा नहीं हो रहा है. आप कंपनीज को अलाउ कर रहे हैं प्राइवेट कॉन्ट्रैक्ट फार्मिंग, राइट? डायरेक्ट कॉन्ट्रैक्ट फार्मिंग इफ यू आर अलाउइंग, ऑब्वियसली whoever is involved would want to make profit, right? So farmers are now allowed to sell directly. They are now allowed to sell directly to consumers, including corporate houses. For example, if somebody is a potato farmer, right? Particularly, let's say somebody is a potato farmer. Now this potato farmer can directly enter into a contract with a company like McDonald's. Okay. This can now directly. Now, why does McDonald's need potatoes? ऐसा है? Does McDonald's need a lot of potatoes? इतने सारे potatoes की McDonald's की जरूरत पड़ती है क्या कि agriculture से जाके वो लोग इतने 1000 kgs खरीदेंगे? हजारों kgs, tons of potatoes. Will they buy tons of potatoes? Yes. Why does McDonald's need ton of potatoes? Because French fries, huh? I'm just giving you an example. It's not just that the बात इतनी ही है. Of course, the discussion is much larger, but just to give you an example, right? McDonald's is a huge corporation. It's a huge corporation and it needs lots and lots of potatoes. But when McDonald's usually would want to buy potatoes because of their own brand value, because of their own reputation, their market presence, and frankly the amount of competition that they also face from Starbucks to Burger King, to so many other burger joints that are coming out. McDonald's also has its own competition, right? KFC. they want to maintain a certain quality, right? कि आलू का ये quality होना चाहिए, this should be the amount of fertilizers that you're using, this should not be the amount of fertilizers that you're using. The potatoes have to be minimum this much size, right? Because otherwise they'll have small French fries. And of course McDonald's wants their French fries to be of a certain quality, to be of a certain length, and they want to make it a standardized process. कि ऐसा नहीं कि हांगकांग में फ्रेंच फ्राइज उनके छोटे मिलते हैं और लखनऊ में फ्रेंच फ्राइज बड़े मिलते हैं, ऐसा नहीं है. देयर फ्रेंच फ्राइज आर they have to be of a uniform standard. So they're going to put those conditions, right? They're going to put those conditions in the contract. If a farmer produces total of 1,000 kgs of potatoes and some of the potatoes are not meeting that standard which has been set by McDonald's, right? McDonald's will refuse to purchase. Essentially what will happen is McDonald's will definitely refuse to purchase those potatoes from those particular from not just a farmer, वो B, C, D जितने भी farmers के साथ contract हुआ होगा, जो potatoes वो size को meet नहीं करेंगे. So what does the farmer now do with the other potatoes, right? Is something that has been wondering. If McDonald's doesn't make the payment, किसान गरीब है, किसान को अगली फसल के लिए टाइम बहुत सेंसिटिव है, right? For a farmer, time is a very very sensitive issue, right? Like for example, now if the if the farmer doesn't have seeds for the next season, right? बारिश हो के चली गई, ये हो गया वो हो गया, अब उसकी खेती ही नहीं हो पाएगी, right? So he wants to sell it now, he wants to get paid now, he can't really go to court, then wait for an arbitration, और ये dispute resolution अलग से चलेगा, मैटर सुप्रीम कोर्ट जा रहा है, वो तब तक बैंकरप्ट हो जाएगा. So there are some safety measures, of course, that have to be put in place so that the farmer doesn't end up committing suicide, doesn't go bankrupt, and so on and so forth, right? Vijay Prakash, yes Vijay, that's towards the end of September. I think end of September was my last day there, and of course you will see me very regularly on this platform. अब यहाँ पर बातें मुलाकातें, लेकिन so ठीक है, तो वो अलग बात है, but law नहीं छोड़ा है. I'm still going to be discussing about law school, the various current affairs and so on, right? So good to see you, right? Okay. So again, like I was telling you, there are so many protective measures that the farmers obviously would be requiring. अब ये सिर्फ जो protective measures है उसके लिए law ने क्या किया है? The law provides for dispute resolution mechanisms to safeguard against exploitation by the corporations. अब वो क्या क्या कुछ measures तो जरूर हैं. Honestly, I don't know if that is going to be enough. There are some protections like unreasonable clauses should not be there, this should not be there, that should not be there, payment ho jana chahiye. But the question still remains that if a company which is of the size of McDonald's or KFC decides not to pay, right? घूम फिर के remedy क्या है? What is the solution? And the solution would be that this farmer, the poor farmer who doesn't have the money to even wait for payments to be made for purchase of seeds and fertilizer and pay the electricity bill, who is literally living from hand to mouth and so on, what remedy does this farmer have? To go to the government, to go to the court, to go to the dispute resolution, go through the dispute resolution process, and so on. All of that is something that a particular farmer, a poor farmer, may or may not, be able to ultimately afford. And that right there becomes a major challenge and has remained a major challenge for the people who are protesting as far as these farm bills and so on are concerned, right? So khair, dekhte hain, the things are still evolving. Let's look at the last amendment. ये जो Essential Commodities Act है, ये तो नया law नहीं है. This is an old legislation This is of course something which has been amended, which has undergone an amendment, right? So Essential Commodities Act में क्या बात हो रही है? It removes food stuff such as cereals, pulses, potato, onion, edible seeds and oils from the list of essential commodities, which means क्या फर्क पड़ता है? क्या फर्क पड़ता है? एसेंशियल कमोडिटी में था तो क्या डिफरेंस है? अब अगर हटा दिए तो क्या डिफरेंस है? द मेन डिफरेंस इज नाउ मार्केट प्राइसेस कैन बी मोर रेगुलेटेड अकॉर्डिंग टू मार्केट, राइट? स्टॉक होल्डिंग लिमिट्स अब रिमूव कर दिए गए हैं, राइट? सो इससे ज्यादा आप एक पर्टिकुलर प्रोड्यूस को पहले रख नहीं सकते थे. You have to pass it on and this that, you have to give it to the government or and so on and so forth. So again those kind of things have been removed. अगर ये essential में नहीं है, that means completely market regulated हो जाएगा, right? Free market economy. But free market economy, you know, it's a long debate, and I think if I convert this lecture into a philosophy discussion or a sociology or political science or capitalism versus socialism kind of a lecture, then we can discuss it till evening and we would still not be done finishing it off. Capitalism has its own beauty. Capitalism, I think, has its own burdens as well at the end of the day, right? As much as it's a free market economy means merit will have highest value, it means theoretically at least, it means that whoever's product is better will survive, whoever's product is not better, तो आप मेहनत नहीं कर रहे हैं, आपका क्वालिटी अच्छा नहीं है, तो फिर आप बर्बाद होंगे, हमें उससे क्या लेना देना है, right? If you're good, you get paid. If you're not good, you don't get paid. Okay, very simple. That's capitalism. The problem is sometimes there are so many barriers to entry itself, right? अब मैं participate ही नहीं कर पाऊंगा, तो whether I'm good or I'm not good is something that doesn't even get verified, right? Opportunity मिलेगा तब तो competition होगा, right? Everybody is not in an equal position to have equal opportunity and therefore to have equal merit, you know, and that's something that we keep discussing when there is a discussion on Article 14 as well. And I think that's the whole heart of this particular amendment as well. That okay, we have lifted the regulation on everything, and that sounds very good. Okay, that sounds very good, but you know, if there are no holding limitations and I'm a very rich person, if I start a go down and I lock down all the onion, I can create a false supply barrier, right? I can start hoarding the goods. I can create a situation where the demand is more than the supply, right? कि shortage type का feeling आ रहा है. अब shortage का feeling आएगा तो price बढ़ेगा, right? अरे प्याज मिल ही नहीं रहा, तो अब प्याज 100 रुपए का मिल रहा है. And when the price shoots up, and only the rich and the super rich would be able to do this, right? एक गरीब farmer अलग से 5,000 टन प्याज को storage में रख भी नहीं सकता, right? So the rich can create a false shortage as well. They can. So capitalism, like I said, theoretically is probably, even I personally think, is one of the best ways to encourage competition, to encourage hard work, to encourage more merit, technological advancement, and pretty much everything else. Except the problem is capitalism is always an advantage for people who already have a lot of capital, right? Because they can manipulate the free market into a completely biased market. So that's I think the heart of the Essential Commodities Act wala discussion, right? Of course, extraordinary circumstances agar honge, right? अगर extraordinary circumstances होंगे, then the government can notify that these things will still come under essential commodities, that these things cannot be hoarded, there will be stock holding limitations, ये सब हो रहा है, including a steep price rise, right? So अगर shortage हो रहा है तो यहाँ पर ये regulation तो है ही, बहुत ज़्यादा shortage करा के अगर बहुत ज़्यादा price बढ़ गया है, right, तो वो anyway essential commodity में count कर लेंगे, सरकार उसको essential commodity में count कर लेगी, and then they will say that this is an extraordinary circumstance, and the stock holding limits which were removed, they will start applying, right? So they will reapply, and then you may or may not make too much of a profit, right? You may or may not make too much of a profit, right? Okay, any questions, guys? Any questions? We still have a few minutes where I thought if you guys have any questions, then I'll take them. Otherwise, I'm going to wrap it up with the final words. The final words is ultimately up to some time has also passed, and the matter has already, like I said, it's already reached the Supreme Court and so on. And the previous Chief Justice, Sharad Arvind Bobde, ultimately specifically had to come up and say, we want to solve the problem, we want to understand the ground situation, this is not politics, and has requested, and that's the current position as well, that there are still requests being made to the farmers, right, that you should cooperate, should let the highways open up perhaps, have a conversation, with the Supreme Court and with the committee that has been created, the independent committee, whatever, that has been created by the Supreme Court, even if you don't trust the government, and let's hope that this problem sort of gets resolved as quickly as possible. Of course, a certain segment of farmers definitely don't agree कि जो हो रहा है सही हो रहा है, right? Of course, they don't believe कि जो हो रहा है सही हो रहा है, and they definitely want to, the only acceptable solution for them is revocation of these farm bills and these farm laws and so on. The government has also taken a hardline stand in this particular situation. They are definitely of the opinion कि हम हटाएंगे नहीं, right? We are not going to remove this. So let's see how that story ultimately evolves and what the future has in store with us, while we wait for the Lakhimpur KD incident also to get resolved, and while we wait for elections 2022 in the state of Uttar Pradesh as well. Thank you very much, guys. Please do remember to subscribe. I think some of you are not able to participate in the chat because of non-subscription as well. Do remember to hit the bell icon. Of course, I will keep on posting all the classes on my Telegram group as well. I'll give it a few seconds if you guys have any questions. Any questions, guys? I will give it a few seconds. Otherwise, thank you very, very much. I do have another session. Today at 8 p.m. Today at 8 p.m. Of course, that is a session where we would get started today at 8 p.m. And this is something where we will get started with constitutional, ये क्या हुआ है मेरे handwriting? Anyway, constitutional law. We will get started with constitutional law. I do want to start revising all the essentials, and so on. So let's see. Let's wait. You guys have a decent enough time to catch up with all kind of things. Thank you very, very much, everyone, and I will see you guys in the evening. Bye bye, everyone. Thank you very much once again.